The crystal wine glass shattered in my grip, sending shards across the mahogany dining table. Blood trickled down my palm, but I barely noticed the pain. What hurt more was the casual way my mother-in-law had just demanded I sign over my entire company to her precious son. I'm Zariah, and until 10 minutes ago, this was supposed to be a normal family dinner. Darling, you're bleeding. Vincent reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The concern in his voice felt hollow after his silence during his mother's speech. I'll get the first aid kit. Amber, my sister-in-law, hurried from the room. At least someone was acting normal. Vada dabbed her napkin at imaginary crumbs, her perfectly manicured nails gleaming under the chandelier light. Really, Zariah, there's no need for dramatics. What I'm suggesting is perfectly reasonable. The company would do better under Vincent's leadership. It's what's best for the family. Best for the family? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make Vincent flinch. I built Z-Tech from nothing. 5 years of 18-hour days, mortgaging my house, eating ramen noodles. Where was your concern for family then? Mother's right. Vincent finally spoke up. Think about it logically. The pressure's clearly getting to you. You're working too hard. Don't you dare. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Don't pretend this is about my well-being. Amber returned with the first aid kit, but I waved her away. The bleeding had almost stopped anyway. Zariah. Vada's voice took on that sickly sweet tone she used when trying to manipulate situations. You're being unreasonable. Vincent has the business experience. From working at his daddy's company? The one you handed to him on a silver platter? The words flew out before I could stop them. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vada's face hardened, her usual mask of politeness cracking. I will not have you disrespect my late husband's memory. Then don't disrespect everything I've built. I turned to Vincent. Are you really okay with this? With trying to take my company? He wouldn't meet my eyes. It makes sense financially. We could merge operations, streamline everything. As husband and wife, you should be supporting me, not trying to steal my life's work. Nobody's stealing anything, Vada interrupted. We're simply suggesting a restructuring. The paperwork is already drawn up. She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a thick envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Legal documents, transfer of ownership, everything ready to go. They'd planned this ambush down to the last detail. How long? I asked Vincent. How long have you been plotting this? Don't be dramatic, he sighed. Mother's just trying to help. How? Long? A few months, he admitted. But it's not plotting. It's planning for our future. I looked around the dining room, at the family photos on the walls. Vincent and me on our wedding day. Family vacations, Christmas mornings. 5 years of memories suddenly felt like elaborate staging for this moment. Zariah. Amber touched my arm gently. Maybe you should take some time to think about this. Oh, I don't need time. I grabbed my purse from the back of my chair. I built my company from the ground up. It's mine. End of discussion. You're making a mistake, Vada called after me as I headed for the door. Family should come first. I turned back one last time. You're right, Vada. Family should come first. Remember you said that. The drive home was a blur. I barely registered the familiar streets, my mind racing with possibilities. They'd shown their hand, revealed their true colors. Now I needed to figure out my next move. My phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. Come home. We can talk about this. Home. The word felt different now. Tainted. I typed back. Staying at a hotel tonight. Don't follow me. Another buzz. You're overreacting. Mother means well. I turned off my phone and pulled into the hotel parking lot. In my purse, the envelope of legal documents crinkled. They'd really thought I'd just sign everything away. Just like that. They'd thought I was weak. Well, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. In my hotel room, I pulled out my laptop and opened my contacts. First call would be to Felicity. She needed to hear this. Then Shanice from the office. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one. But first, I needed a plan. A way to make them regret ever thinking they could take what was mine. My phone stayed off. Let Vincent stew in his guilt tonight, if he even felt any. Tomorrow would be soon enough to start showing them exactly who they were dealing with. You're not going to believe what I found. Felicity burst into my office, waving her tablet like it contained state secrets. After last night's disaster dinner, I'd come straight to work, needing the familiar comfort of my corner office. "Hit me with it," I said, pushing aside quarterly reports I'd been pretending to read. Vincent's been meeting with Nigel from Apex Tech, multiple times over the past month. She turned the tablet to show me calendar screenshots. My contact in their HR department says they've been having lengthy discussions about future collaborations. My stomach churned. Apex was our biggest competitor. That sneaky bastard. There's more. Felicity swiped through more screenshots. Vada's been CC'd on all the email correspondence. They're planning something big. A knock at my door made us both jump. Shanice, my project manager, stepped in. "Sorry to interrupt, but Vincent's in the lobby. Says he needs to talk to you." Perfect timing. I straightened my blazer. "Felicity, stay. Shanice, send him up." Minutes later, Vincent walked in, looking perfectly put together in his designer suit. The sight of him made my blood boil. "Can we talk privately?" He glanced at Felicity. "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my CFO," he sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. About last night, I cut him off. "Or about your secret meetings with Apex Tech." The color drained from his face. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That's why you want my company, isn't it? To hand it over to Nigel on a silver platter?" "It's not like that," he protested. "Mother and I were exploring options. Your mother needs to stay the hell out of my business." I stood up, planting both hands on my desk. "And so do you. You're being irrational. This merger could be good for everyone." "Merger?" Felicity scoffed. "More like a hostile takeover." Vincent's face hardened. "This is exactly why Mother thinks you need help running things. You're too emotional, too attached. Business requires a logical approach. Get out." My voice was deadly quiet. "Zariah, get out." He straightened his tie, trying to maintain dignity. "We'll talk when you've calmed down." The door closed behind him with a soft click. I collapsed back into my chair, hands shaking. "I need everything you can find on Apex," I told Felicity. "Financial reports, stock prices, internal rumors, everything." My phone buzzed. A text from Amber. "Need to talk." "Lunch? It's important." An hour later, I sat across from Amber in a quiet cafe 2 blocks from my office. She looked nervous, shredding a napkin into tiny pieces. "Vada's been planning this for months," she blurted out. "She's convinced Vincent that you're running the company into the ground, that you're too ambitious for your own good." And he believed her? You know how he gets around her. She's had him wrapped around her finger since their father died. Amber leaned forward. "But there's something else. I overheard her on the phone with Nigel last week. They're planning to force a board vote next month." My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "They can't. I hold majority shares." "For now." Amber's voice dropped to a whisper. "But they're convincing minor shareholders to sell. They're trying to get enough votes to force you out." My phone buzzed again. A message from Shanice. "Emergency. Come back now." Back at the office, Shanice met me at the elevator. "Someone's been accessing confidential files, project specs, client lists, everything." "Vincent," I growled. "He still has his emergency access codes." "I've locked everything down," Shanice assured me. But what?" 3 of our biggest clients called. They're considering moving their contracts to Apex." I stood in the middle of my office, surrounded by the empire I'd built, watching it potentially crumble around me. Then something inside me shifted. The fear and hurt transformed into cold, calculated anger. "Shanice, call legal. I want those access codes changed and every confidentiality agreement reviewed." I turned to Felicity. "Get me everything you can on Nigel. And I mean everything. What are you planning? Felicity asked. I walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. They want to play dirty? Fine. But they're about to learn that I didn't build this company by playing nice. My phone buzzed one more time. Vada. Vincent tells me you're being difficult. Remember, dear, I'm only trying to help. I smiled, a plan already forming. Felicity, one more thing. Get me Nigel's direct number. It's time I had a chat with our competitor. They thought they could outmaneuver me? They were about to learn exactly who they were dealing with. Are you sure about this? Shanice paced my office, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Going behind their backs to meet with Nigel? It feels risky. I adjusted my blazer in the office bathroom mirror. Riskier than letting them steal my company? I just don't want revenge to cloud your judgment. She handed me my lipstick. We've worked too hard to lose everything over emotions. Trust me. I applied the red shade carefully. This isn't about revenge. It's about survival. The elevator ride to Apex Tech's penthouse office felt endless. When the doors opened, Nigel was waiting. All fake smiles and expensive cologne. Zariah, what an unexpected pleasure. He gestured toward his office. Though I must admit, I'm curious why you insisted on meeting here rather than your office. Let's just say I don't trust my own walls right now. I settled into the leather chair across from his desk. But we both know why I'm here. His smile didn't waver. Do we? Vincent and Vada approached you about acquiring my company. I leaned forward. They're promising you something you want. The question is, what am I willing to offer that's better? Nigel's facade cracked slightly. I'm listening. A real merger, not the hostile takeover they're planning. Equal partnership, shared resources, combined market presence. I pulled out a tablet with preliminary projections. Our technologies complement each other. Together, we could dominate the market. He studied the numbers, his expression thoughtful. And Vincent? Would have no part in it. This deal is between you and me. His mother won't like that. His mother isn't the one with the technology patents or client relationships. I smiled. Or did they forget to mention that part? My phone buzzed. A text from Amber. 911. Vada knows you're at Apex. Vincent's on his way. Perfect timing. Think it over. I stood up. But don't take too long. My offer expires in 48 hours. The elevator opened just as I reached it, revealing Vincent's furious face. What are you doing here? He demanded. Business. I stepped around him. You remember what that is, right? Or do you need to check with your mother first? His hand grabbed my arm. Stop this. You're embarrassing yourself. I jerked away. The only embarrassment here is you, trying to steal what you couldn't build yourself. Is everything all right? Nigel had emerged from his office, watching us with interest. Fine. Vincent straightened his tie. Just a domestic disagreement. Really? I turned to Nigel. Tell him about our meeting, about the real merger we discussed. Vincent's face went pale. What merger? I'll let you two discuss that. I headed for the elevator. Oh, and Vincent, I want your things out of the house by tonight. Back at my office, Felicity was waiting with fresh intel. You're not going to believe this. Remember those client contracts that were wavering? Turns out Vada personally reached out to them, spreading rumors about our company's stability. That witch. Shanice had joined us. We could sue for defamation. No. I shook my head. Legal battles would just drain resources we need right now. Besides, I have a better idea. I turned to Shanice. Remember that blockchain project we've been developing? The one that could revolutionize secure data transfer? It's still in testing, but fast track it. I want a demo ready in 2 days. Felicity's eyes widened. You're going to show it to Nigel. Better. I'm going to let him think he's stealing it. I pulled up our project files. We'll leak just enough information to make him salivate. When he realizes what we're capable of, he'll choose us over Vincent and Vada. Shanice finished. Brilliant. My phone lit up with messages. Vincent, We need to talk. Delete. Vada, you're making a terrible mistake. Delete. Amber, just heard Mom screaming at Vincent. What did you do? That last one made me smile. One more thing, I told my team. I want a full audit of every project Vincent had access to. If he copied anything, I want to know. Already on it. Felicity pulled up a document. And you should see this. Vada's been quietly buying up shares through shell companies. They're trying to build voting power. Too little, too late. I checked my watch. The merger paperwork will be ready tomorrow. Once Nigel signs, they'll be powerless. Shanice finished. My phone buzzed again. Nigel, your offer is intriguing. Dinner tomorrow to discuss details? Ladies, I showed them the message. I believe the tables are about to turn. Felicity raised an eyebrow. Revenge served cold? No, I corrected her. Justice served exactly how it should be. I typed back to Nigel. Dinner tomorrow, 8 p.m. Bring your lawyers. The game was on, and this time I was writing the rules. The private dining room at LeBlanc hummed with tension as Nigel's lawyers pored over the merger documents. I sipped my wine, watching Nigel's face for any reaction to our blockchain demonstration. This is... He paused, scrolling through the technical specifications on his tablet. This is revolutionary. That's just the prototype, I smiled. Imagine what we could do with combined resources. A knock at the door made everyone look up. The maitre d' appeared, looking uncomfortable. Pardon the interruption, but there's a situation in the lobby. I didn't need to ask. Vada's voice carried through the restaurant, demanding to be let in. So predictable. Keep reviewing the documents, I told Nigel, standing up. I'll handle this. Vada stood in the lobby, designer suit perfectly pressed, Vincent hovering behind her like a lost puppy. Well, she sneered. Secret meetings now? How desperate. Actually, we're in the middle of signing a merger agreement. I kept my voice light, aware of other diners watching. Would you like to witness your son losing his chance at a hostile takeover? Vincent stepped forward. You can't do this. Watch me. You ungrateful little... Vada started, but I cut her off. Careful, Vada. We wouldn't want everyone here to witness you threatening a CEO during legitimate business negotiations, would we? You think you're so clever, she hissed. But I have private investigators following your every move. One wrong step. Is that supposed to scare me? I laughed. Go ahead. Investigate. All you'll find is a woman protecting what's rightfully hers. Your father-in-law would be disgusted, she spat. My father-in-law built his company honestly, unlike his son who's trying to steal one. Vincent flinched. Good. My phone buzzed. A text from Shanice. Nigel's lawyers finished reviewing. They're ready. Now, if you'll excuse me, I stepped around them. I have a merger to finalize. This isn't over, Vada called after me. You're right, I turned back. It's just beginning. Back in the private room, Nigel's expression had shifted from interested to eager. Your blockchain technology alone is worth the merger, but there's one concern. Vincent? And his mother. They're persistent. I pulled out my phone, showing him screenshots. You mean like these emails where they promised you my company's assets without having any legal right to them? Or these records of Vada attempting to manipulate share prices? His lawyers exchanged glances. I have everything documented, I continued. Every underhanded move, every attempt to undermine my company. The question is, do you want to be on the winning side of this, or the losing one? Nigel picked up his pen. Where do I sign? 2 hours later, I walked into my office where Felicity and Shanice were waiting. Well? Felicity jumped up. I held up the signed merger agreement. We're now equal partners with Apex Tech, and I'm co-CEO. Shanice squealed, pulling me into a hug. Take that, Vincent. My celebration was interrupted by another text from Amber. Mom's on the warpath. She's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow. Perfect timing, I smiled. Felicity, send out the merger announcement to all shareholders. First thing tomorrow morning. Already drafted. She showed me her tablet. This will hit every major business news outlet at 8 a.m. sharp. One more thing. Shanice handed me a folder. We found something interesting in the audit. Vincent accessed our server last week from an unknown IP address. I flipped through the documents. He copied files? Tried to. But remember that security patch we installed last month? It corrupted any unauthorized downloads. All he got was gibberish. My phone rang. Vincent. Don't answer it, Felicity advised. Oh, I think I will. I put it on speaker. Hello, dear. What have you done? His voice shook with rage. Protected my company. Something you should have thought about before conspiring with your mother. The board will never approve this merger. The board won't have a choice. Check your email tomorrow morning. I paused. Oh, and Vincent? I want those corrupted files you stole back. All of them. He hung up. You know they won't give up. Shanice said quietly, I'm counting on it. I walked to the window, watching the city lights twinkle. Because when they make their next move, we'll be ready. My phone buzzed one final time. Nigel. Vada just called, threatening legal action. Should I be worried? I typed back. No. Let her dig her own grave. Tomorrow, the real fireworks would begin. Let them call their emergency board meeting. Let them try to stop what was already in motion. Because this time, I wasn't just fighting back. I was changing the game entirely. The boardroom erupted into chaos as soon as the merger announcement flashed across the wall-mounted screens. Vada's face turned an impressive shade of purple as she read the headlines. Tech giants unite. Z-Tech and Apex Tech announce revolutionary merger. This is outrageous. She slammed her hand on the mahogany table. The board never approved this. The board doesn't need to. I replied calmly, sliding copies of the merger agreement across the table. As majority shareholder, I had full authority to negotiate this deal. Actually, one of the board members adjusted his glasses, scanning the document. These terms are incredibly favorable. Our stock price has already jumped 12% since the announcement. Vincent burst through the boardroom doors, late as usual. Stop the press release. Too late. Felicity smirked from her seat beside me. It's already trending on Twitter. You manipulative bit, Vincent started, but Nigel chose that moment to walk in. Sorry I'm late, he announced, taking the empty seat next to me. Traffic was horrible. Did I miss anything important? Vada's eyes narrowed. You betrayed us. Betrayed? Nigel raised an eyebrow. I chose the better business opportunity. Something you should understand, Vada, given your creative approaches to acquisition. The board members shifted uncomfortably. One cleared his throat. What creative approaches? I pulled out another folder. Funny you should ask. We have evidence of attempted corporate espionage, market manipulation, and defamation. I started distributing copies, including recorded conversations with our clients, spreading false information about our company's stability. Those recordings are illegal, Vada sputtered, not when they're made by the clients themselves. I smiled. Turns out not everyone appreciates being manipulated. Vincent grabbed a copy, his face paling as he read. Mother, what did you do? Only what was necessary to protect you. She turned to the board. Everything I did was to preserve this company's legacy. By destroying it? I stood up. The merger with Apex Tech will double our market share, expand our technological capabilities, and secure our position as industry leaders. Your plan would have gutted us for parts. She's right. Another board member spoke up, reviewing the projections. These numbers are impressive. Vada wasn't finished. Vincent is the rightful heir to what? I cut her off. A company he didn't build? Innovation he didn't create? Face it, Vada. Your son isn't half the business person his father was. Vincent lunged forward, but Nigel stepped between us. Careful, he warned. Assault charges wouldn't look good in tomorrow's papers. My phone buzzed. A message from Shanice. Private investigators spotted outside. 2 of them. Perfect. Oh, and Vada? I pulled up some photos on my phone. Next time you hire private investigators, make sure they're not former employees of Apex Tech. Nigel's security team spotted them immediately. The color drained from her face. That's harassment, Vincent protested. Exactly, I agreed. The restraining order should be processed by end of day. The board chairman cleared his throat. I think we've heard enough. The merger appears legally sound and financially beneficial. Unless there are any legitimate objections? Silence. Then this meeting is adjourned. Congratulations on the merger, Zariah. As the board members filed out, Vada grabbed my arm. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I pulled free. And if you ever touch me again, I'll add assault to the restraining order. Back in my office, Felicity and Shanice were waiting with champagne. Did you see their faces? Shanice popped the cork. Priceless. Don't celebrate yet, I warned, checking my phone. They'll try something else. Let them. Felicity handed me a glass. We've got them cornered. A knock at the door. Amber stepped in, looking nervous. Can we talk? The others took their cue to leave. Mom's losing it, Amber said once we were alone. She's talking about legal action, going to the press. With what evidence? I sipped my champagne. Everything she has implicates her more than me. Vincent's a mess. He keeps saying you betrayed him. Funny how betrayal feels, isn't it? Amber moved to the window. They never saw you coming. Dad would have been proud. What? Dad always said the company needed fresh blood, new ideas. She turned back to me. That's why he encouraged Vincent to marry you. He saw something in you that Mom never could. My phone buzzed again. Vincent. We need to talk, please, about us. I showed Amber the message. Are you going to answer? No. I deleted it. There's nothing left to say. Another buzz. Nigel. Emergency at Apex. Need you here now. Possible security breach. I grabbed my coat. The day wasn't over yet, and something told me Vada had one more card to play. But this time, I was ready for anything. Apex Tech's offices were in chaos when I arrived. Security guards rushed past me as Nigel paced the lobby, phone pressed to his ear. Someone accessed our servers, he explained, hanging up. They're trying to corrupt the merger files. Vincent, I growled, pulling out my phone to call Shanice. Already on it, she answered before I could speak. The attack's coming from inside our old backup server, the one Vincent still had access to. Can you stop it? Better, I can trace it. Nigel's security chief approached us, tablet in hand. Sir, we've located the source. It's coming from a private office downtown. Let me guess. I looked at the address. Vada's law firm? Got it in one. My phone buzzed with a text from Amber. Mom just called Vincent, screaming about files being corrupted. What did you do? I smiled. Shanice, remember that security patch that corrupted Vincent's stolen files? Yeah? Did we ever tell them it was actually a tracking virus? Nigel's eyes widened. You knew they'd try this. Better. I showed him my screen where Shanice had sent a tracking log. Every time they try to access those files, it sends their location and corrupts more of their system. Clever, he admitted. But we still need to stop the attack. Already done. Shanice's voice came through the speaker. I've locked them out completely, but there's something else. Someone inside Apex is helping them. Nigel's face darkened. Who? Your head of IT, Marcus. He's been feeding them access codes. The same Marcus who's been suspiciously absent today? Nigel grabbed his phone. Security, find Marcus, now. My phone rang. Vincent. What did you do? He demanded when I answered. Mother's lawyers can't access any of their computers. Karma's a witch, isn't it? I hung up. Nigel's security team returned with Marcus in tow, looking decidedly uncomfortable. Mrs. Patterson paid me, he blurted before anyone could speak. She said it was just insurance, in case the merger went bad. How much? Nigel's voice was deadly quiet. 50,000. Congratulations. I stepped forward. You just committed corporate espionage for pocket change. Hope it was worth federal charges. Marcus went pale. Federal? Did you really think we wouldn't have FBI cybercrime division on speed dial for a merger this size? Nigel nodded to his security team. Hold him for questioning. My phone buzzed again. Felicity, you need to see this. Vada's going to the press. I pulled up the live feed on my tablet. There was Vada standing outside her law firm, surrounded by reporters. This merger is illegal, she was saying. My daughter-in-law has manipulated everyone involved. The feed suddenly cut out, replaced by breaking news. Tech merger scandal. Evidence of corporate espionage attempts revealed. What the? Nigel stared at the screen. Shanice's voice came through my phone. Remember those tracking logs? I may have sent them to every major news outlet, along with recordings of Vada's conversations with Marcus. On screen, reporters were now swarming Vada, asking about the allegations. Her perfect composure cracked as she fled to her car. Zariah! Vincent burst out of the elevator. Stop this. You're destroying our family. No, Vincent. Your mother did that when she tried to steal my company. She was trying to protect me. From what? Success? Independence? God forbid your wife be more successful than you. His face contorted. You think you're so perfect? I know about your meetings with Nigel. The late nights, the secret dinners. Nigel actually laughed. Is that what your mother told you? That your wife was having an affair instead of saving her company? Vincent faltered. She said what she needed to say to manipulate you. I finished. Just like always. My phone lit up with message after message. News outlets wanting comments. Board members pledging support. And one from Amber. Mom's being questioned by FBI agents. Vincent needs to know the truth. Show him, Nigel suggested. I pulled up the evidence on my tablet. Every manipulative email, every secret meeting, every attempt to undermine my company, all orchestrated by his mother. Vincent sank into a chair, face ashen. I didn't know. You thought what she wanted you to think. I turned away. We're done here. Zariah, please. Security will show you out. As Vincent was led away, Nigel touched my arm. You knew they'd try something like this. I knew Vada would never let go quietly. I checked my phone again. The news was everywhere now. She needed to destroy herself publicly. Ruthless. He smiled. I like it. Another buzz. Vada. You'll regret this. I typed back. No, Vada. You already do. Tomorrow would bring damage control, press conferences, and probably more attempts at retaliation. But for now, watching Vada's carefully constructed world crumble on national television was satisfaction enough. The press conference room buzzed with anticipation. Camera flashes popped as I took my place at the podium, Nigel standing supportively to my right. Good morning, I began, my voice steady. Today marks a historic moment for both Z-Tech and Apex Technologies. The doors burst open. Vada stormed in, Vincent trailing behind her like a lost shadow. Security moved to intercept them, but I held up my hand. Let them stay, I said into the microphone. They should hear this. Cameras swiveled to capture Vada's rage-twisted face. As I was saying, I continued, this merger represents more than just business. It represents integrity winning over manipulation, innovation trumping entitlement. Liar, Vada shouted. You stole this company from my son. The reporters went wild, cameras flashing frantically. Actually, I pulled out a document. I'd like to address that. Yesterday, federal authorities uncovered evidence of corporate espionage, attempted theft of intellectual property, and market manipulation. Would you like to comment on your role in those activities, Vada? She lunged forward, but security caught her arms. You orchestrated this. You trapped us. No. I held up a USB drive. You trapped yourself. Every email, every secret meeting, every attempt to steal my company. It's all here. Would anyone from the press like a copy? Hands shot up across the room. You can't prove anything. Vada spat. Nigel stepped forward. Actually, we can. Your IT consultant, Marcus, has been very cooperative with federal investigators. Vincent's face went pale. Mother, what did you do? Everything I did was for you. She turned to him. To secure your future. By committing crimes? He backed away. By lying to me about my own wife? The reporters were scribbling frantically, cameras rolling. Speaking of crimes, I nodded to Felicity, who stepped forward with more documents. We've uncovered evidence of similar attempts to manipulate other companies over the past decade. The FBI is very interested in establishing a pattern. Vada's composure finally cracked. You vindictive little... Choose your next words carefully. I cut her off. You're on live television. She fell silent, finally seeming to register the cameras. Now, I turned back to the reporters. Any questions about the merger? Hands shot up everywhere. I pointed to a reporter in front. Is it true that Mrs. Patterson attempted to force a hostile takeover through fraudulent means? The evidence speaks for itself, I replied diplomatically. But yes, that attempt failed spectacularly. Another reporter. Mr. Patterson, did you know about your mother's illegal activities? Vincent stepped forward, his voice shaking. No, I was manipulated too. I owe my wife an apology. The room fell silent. Even Vada stopped struggling against security. Save it, I said quietly. The divorce papers are already filed. Cameras clicked frantically as Vincent's face crumbled. One more announcement, I continued. In light of recent events, both Z-Tech and Apex Tech will be implementing new anti-corruption measures. We believe in earning success, not stealing it. Vada laughed bitterly. You think you've won? I still have connections. Had connections, Nigel corrected. Amazing how quickly people distance themselves from federal investigations. My phone buzzed. A message from Amber. FBI just left Mom's office with boxes of evidence. It's over. Mrs. Matthews, another reporter called out. What's next for the merged companies? Growth, innovation, success. I smiled directly at Vada. All achieved legally and ethically. You've destroyed this family, Vada shouted as security began escorting her out. No, Vada, you did that yourself. After the press conference, Felicity found me in my office. The stock price is soaring, she reported. And you're trending on Twitter. Boss Babe and Karma is Real are the top hashtags. Any word from Vincent? He's agreed to a quiet divorce, probably trying to distance himself from his mother's scandal. My phone lit up with a call from Amber. You okay? I answered. Mom's being charged. Her voice was thick with tears. Multiple counts. They're saying she could face serious time. I'm sorry, Amber. Don't be. She did this to herself. She paused. Dad would have been proud of you, you know, for standing up to her. After hanging up, I walked to my office window. Below, news vans were still parked outside, reporters waiting for more drama. Nigel appeared in my doorway. Ready for the merger announcement party? Almost. I checked my phone one last time. A final message from Vincent. I'm sorry. For everything. I deleted it without responding. You know, Nigel said quietly, revenge doesn't usually feel this satisfying. This isn't revenge, I corrected him. This is justice. And justice, it turned out, felt better than revenge ever could. Guilty on all counts. The judge's words echoed through the courtroom. I watched Vada's shoulders stiffen as the reality of her situation sank in. Her designer suit couldn't hide her defeat now. The defendant will surrender herself for processing immediately, the judge continued. Sentencing will be scheduled for next week. As bailiffs approached Vada, she turned to face me in the gallery. Are you happy now? This isn't about happiness, I replied quietly. It's about consequences. Vincent sat 3 rows behind her, head bowed. He hadn't looked at me once during the trial. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Felicity handled them expertly while Shanice guided me through the crowd to our waiting car. 8 counts of corporate espionage. Shanice whistled once we were inside. Plus, fraud and conspiracy. She'll be lucky to get less than 15 years. My phone buzzed. Amber. Can we meet? Need to talk. An hour later, I sat across from her at our old favorite cafe. Vincent's selling his shares, she said without preamble. He's moving to Europe. Says he needs a fresh start. Smart move. He wanted me to give you this. She slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a letter and a familiar USB drive, the one he'd used to try stealing company files. Read it, she urged. I unfolded the paper. Zariah, the drive contains everything. Every email, every conversation with Mother about taking your company. I've already given copies to the prosecutors, but you should have this too. I'm sorry I was too weak to stand up to her. Too blind to see what was right in front of me. You built something amazing, and I let jealousy and Mother's manipulation poison everything. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. Vincent. He's really leaving? I asked Amber. First flight tomorrow. She stirred her coffee. You know what's ironic? Mom's schemes cost her everything she was trying to protect. The family name, the social status, Vincent's future. My phone lit up with a message from Nigel. Turn on the news, now. Amber and I huddled over my phone to watch the breaking story. Tech titan Vada Patterson's empire crumbles, board forces liquidation of family holdings. Holy shit, Amber whispered. Back at the office, champagne was flowing. Our merged company's stock had hit another record high, and the board had just approved our expansion plans. To karma, Felicity raised her glass. To justice, Shanice corrected. To both, I smiled, but my celebration was interrupted by a familiar face at my office door. Vincent. Can we talk? He asked quietly. Before I leave? I nodded to my team, who filed out discreetly. I read your letter, I said. I meant every word. He stayed by the door, maintaining his distance. I kept telling myself I was protecting our marriage, our future, but I was just being a coward. Yes, you were. The funny thing is, he gave a hollow laugh. Dad always said you were the best thing that could have happened to this family. He saw your potential. Mother saw it too. That's why she felt threatened. Why are you here, Vincent? To say goodbye. And to tell you that Dad was right. You're exactly what this company needed. He turned to leave, then paused. Take care of Amber? Always. After he left, I walked to my window, the same one I'd stared out of so many times during this battle. But today felt different. Final. My phone buzzed one last time. A news alert. Vada Patterson, sentenced 18 years for corporate crimes. Nigel appeared in my doorway. Board meeting in 10. Ready to show them the future? I grabbed my tablet, pulling up our new project specs. More than ready. No regrets? He asked as we walked to the boardroom. About how everything played out? The only person responsible for Vada's downfall was Vada, I replied. She chose greed over family, manipulation over honesty. And Vincent? Chose weakness over integrity. I paused outside the boardroom. But that's their story. This? I gestured to the bustling office around us. This is mine. Inside, the board members waited expectantly. As I took my place at the head of the table, I felt something I hadn't experienced since this all began. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, let's talk about the future. Because that's what mattered now. Not revenge, not vindication, but building something lasting. Something honest. Something that would make my own legacy worth remembering. And this time, no one could take it from me.
I'm Lena, been in sales longer than I'd care to admit. Worked my way up to the big leagues, head of sales at this place everyone's heard of, but nobody really knows what they do. Life was all about the hustle, making those numbers dance. Then, this MLM gig landed in my lap. Sounded like a load of bull at first, but I gave it a shot. Turns out, I was pretty darn good at it. Made a killing, but you wouldn't know it looking at my place or my car. Modesty's my middle name, I guess. One mundane Tuesday, doing laundry in the basement of my building, that's when I ran into Alex. Guy looked lost, holding a pink, frilly dress in one hand and a detergent bottle in the other. Picture this, a big, burly dude, probably in his early 40s, looking like he's about to enter a war zone with a washing machine. "Hey, you got a minute?" he asked, scratching his head. "Which one of these will get grass stains out?" My daughter's a bit of a tomboy, keeps sliding into home base in her Sunday best. I couldn't help but laugh. "That one," I pointed at the non-toxic, organic stuff. "Works wonders and won't turn her into a mutant." He chuckled, his eyes lighting up. "Thanks. I'm Alex, by the way. Alex and the mutant making stains." "Lena," I said, offering a handshake. "First time handling the laundry?" I teased. He sighed, a mix of exhaustion and amusement. "Feels like it. My daughter, Mia, she's 8. Full of life and stubborn as a mule. I'm a surgeon, so I can reattach a limb, no sweat. But this?" He waved at the machines like they were alien technology. "Might as well be rocket science." Our chat was cut short when his phone buzzed, a reminder of some dad duty, no doubt. But he paused, looking back at me. "Listen, Lena, would you? I mean, could I maybe get your number? For laundry advice. Strictly professional, of course." "Sure," I said, scribbling my number on a piece of paper. "But only if you promise to share your secret on reattaching limbs. Never know when that could come in handy." He laughed, pocketing the number. "Deal. Thanks, Lena. Really. That should have been it, a one-off laundry room meet, cute. But life's funny like that." Next thing I know, we're bumping into each other at the grocery store, then grabbing coffee, and then dinner. Alex was different, a genuine guy who cared deeply about Mia. Watching him be a dad was something else. Made my heart do somersaults, which was new for me. Our dates weren't fancy, far from it. We'd find ourselves arguing over the best pizza topping or which movie to watch. It was real. One night, over burnt popcorn and a movie neither of us was watching, he looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Lena, I don't know what this is or where it's going, but I'm in if you are." "Yeah," I replied, my voice softer than I intended. "I'm in, too." Things moved fast after that. Before I knew it, he was on one knee in that same laundry room where we first met, holding out a ring that was probably too expensive for a place that smelled like fabric softener and old socks. It was perfect. "I know this place isn't much," he started, his voice steady but his hands shaking just a bit. "But it's where I found the most amazing woman. Lena, will you marry me?" I didn't even let him finish. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Looking back, it was like a dream. A simple, unexpected meeting that changed everything. Who knew laundry day could turn your life upside down? Before tying the knot, I made a big move into Alex's place, where he lived with his 8-year-old whirlwind, Mia. My own apartments? Rented them out, a little detail Alex wasn't privy to. It was a practical move, keeping my investments working while I dived into this new domestic bliss. So, there we were one night, kitchen chaos from a stab at homemade pizza, when Alex dropped the P word. "Lena, we gotta chat. 'Bout something serious," he said, scraping a burnt crust off the pan. One evening, over a hastily thrown together dinner of spaghetti and meatballs, Alex brought up the subject I never thought would come into our little bubble of happiness. "So, Lena," he started, twirling spaghetti around his fork like he was gearing up for something big. I've been thinking, about us, about the future. I nodded, my stomach nodding. Yeah, me too. He took a deep breath, setting his fork down. I think we should talk about getting a prenup. I choked on my meatball. A prenup? I managed to cough out. Yeah, he said, rushing to pour me a glass of water. Hear me out, okay? It's not that I don't trust you or anything. It's just practical, With Mia and everything, I gotta think about her future too. I took a sip of water, trying to collect my thoughts. Alex, I get it. It's just, I never saw us as that couple, The ones who plan their divorce before they're even married. He reached across the table, taking my hand. Lena, it's not like that. It's just a safety net, for both of us. You're killing it with your business, and I've got my practice. It's about protecting what we've both worked so hard for. I could see the logic in his words, but it stung. And what about us? What are we working towards? Doesn't this feel like we're betting against us making it? Alex squeezed my hand tighter. Hey, no way. I'm all in, Lena. This is just paperwork, a formality. I'm betting everything on us. But let's be smart, too. For Mia, for any future kids we might have. The way he included potential future kids in his argument, it softened me. Okay, let's do this smart then. But no cold lawyers. We make this agreement about us, our family. He smiled, that grin that always made me melt. Deal. We'll make it the most romantic prenup ever. How's that? Romantic prenup. I laughed. Now, there's something you don't hear every day. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings with lawyers and notaries, making sure our prenup was ironclad yet fair. Alex was right, it was practical, especially considering our unique financial situations. Still, it wasn't the most romantic lead-up to a wedding. But we made it work, sneaking in dates between meetings, laughing over the absurdity of discussing asset division over dinner. Finally, with the prenup signed and safely filed away, we could focus on the wedding. It was a small affair, just close friends and family. Mia was the flower girl, of course, stealing the show. The day was perfect, filled with laughter, tears, and a sense of unity. As we danced our first dance, Alex whispered in my ear, "See, we're making it. The prenup's just a piece of paper. This," he gestured around the room, "is real life." I smiled, resting my head on his shoulder. Yeah, this is us. For better or worse. But even in that perfect moment, I couldn't shake off a tiny voice in the back of my head. Was the prenup a sign of things to come, a crack in our foundation? Or was it just us being adults, facing reality head-on? Over time, our home life was a bit off-kilter. Alex threw himself into work, leaving me to juggle running the house, helping Mia with her homework, and squeezing in my own work from a makeshift office in the corner of our bedroom. Early on, I floated the idea to Alex about him starting his own practice. I could see the potential, it made sense with my knack for business and his medical expertise. Alex, have you ever thought about opening your own clinic? You'd be great, and we could manage it together, I suggested one evening, trying to keep the conversation light yet serious. He barely looked up from his plate, his fork pausing midair. Lena, drop it. I'm a surgeon, not some entrepreneur. And you're just a housewife, what do you know about running a business like that? His words stung. Just a housewife? Really, Alex? I've run a successful business for years. I know what I'm talking about. He scoffed, shaking his head. Let's not pretend your little MLM thing is the same as starting a medical practice. Stay out of it. I bit back a sharper reply. It wasn't worth the argument. But it hurt, being belittled like that, especially considering what I'd achieved on my own. As time went on, Alex's mood soured further. He'd come home late, reeking of alcohol, ranting about how the younger doctors were out to get him, stealing his surgeries, his prestige. I tried to talk to him, to find out what was really going on, to help, Alex, drinking like this, it's not you. What's really bothering you at work? I reached out, trying to bridge the gap that had formed between us. He shrugged off my hand, his eyes dark. What do you care? You wouldn't understand. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, Lena. You're safe here in your little bubble. I recoiled as if slapped. My efforts to support him, to be a partner in this marriage, were brushed off, leaving me feeling more isolated than ever. Mia's transformation from a sweet child to a rebellious teen didn't help matters. Her demands grew alongside her attitude, and the day she exploded at me over a denied shopping spree, calling me names, was a low point. I can't believe you. You're just a greedy, old witch. Dad should never have married you. Mia's face was twisted in anger, her words cutting deep. I tried to stay calm, though every fiber of me wanted to shout back. Mia, that's enough. I am not your enemy. But it was like talking to a brick wall. She stormed off, leaving me to wonder where the sweet girl I once knew had gone. Turning to Alex for support was becoming a joke. She's your daughter, Alex. She's out of control. We need to do something. I pleaded after telling him about the latest episode. He just gave me a cold look. She's right, you know. You're not her mom. Don't pretend to be. Each word from him was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. I was alone in a house full of people, my contributions and feelings dismissed, my presence barely tolerated. Things took a nosedive when Alex stopped pitching in for anything around the house. Not a dime for groceries, bills, nada. There I was, juggling my online work, feeding us, keeping the place from turning into a dump, and making sure all the bills got paid on time. This wasn't the partnership I signed up for. It was like I was running a one-woman charity for the ungrateful. I'd lie awake at night, tallying up expenses in my head, wondering how we got here. This wasn't the dream. The dream wasn't supposed to have me stretched thin, covering every expense while Alex pretended we were still some happy family. One night, things hit rock bottom. Huddled on the couch with my laptop, I overheard Alex in the next room, his voice low but panicked, talking on the phone. Yeah, messed up the surgery again. Left a damn tampon inside her. But don't worry, I've got it covered. We'll pin it on the assistant. No one's gonna suspect a thing. My stomach turned. This wasn't just about us anymore, it was about his patience, his ethics. I knew I had to confront him. I couldn't just let it slide. So, I confronted him. Alex, we need to talk about what you said on the phone. You can't seriously be thinking of blaming someone else for your mistake. He whirled on me, his face twisted in anger. Mind your own damn business, Lena. This has nothing to do with you. I was taken aback. Nothing to do with me? Alex, this is about right and wrong. You can't just. Shut up. Just shut up. He shouted, cutting me off. You know what? I'm sick of you. You're a terrible lay, you can't cook for shit, and you're a lousy stepmom to Mia. His words were like a slap. I tried to argue, to defend myself, but he wasn't having any of it. You know what, Lena? I want you out. You're nothing but a drain on me. Get out of my house. Now. Before I could even process what was happening, he grabbed me by the shoulders and shoved me out the door, into the cold night, clad only in my pajamas. I was stunned, shivering, and hurt, but I wasn't about to let him get away with this. I banged on the door, my voice steady but firm. Open this door, Alex. Or I swear I'll call the cops. After what felt like an eternity, he begrudgingly opened the door, a scowl plastered on his face. As I stepped back into the warmth of the apartment, Mia appeared. Her words cut deeper than the cold. Dad, why'd you let her back in? Should have left her out there. That stung. More than anything Alex had said. Mia's words hammered home a painful truth. I had poured so much love and effort into this family, only to be treated like an outsider, like I was worthless. In that moment, something inside me clicked. It was clear as day. They didn't deserve my care, my love, my sacrifice. I realized I had been clinging to a fantasy, but the reality was far uglier. Waking up that next morning felt like lifting a ton of bricks off my chest. Alex had already left for work, silent as a ghost. Mia, too, headed out to school without a word my way. Not a bye, not even a glance. Fine. If they wanted to play it like I was invisible, I could do one better, I'd disappear for real. I packed my bags, grabbing important documents, and left for one of my apartments that was sitting empty. The silence of the place was a balm after the chaos of the last few months. No sneers, no cold shoulders, just me and my thoughts. First order of business? Lawyer. I needed to know where I stood legally. The lawyer's office was all polished wood and the smell of leather, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, was a straight shooter. With the prenup and no shared children, this should be straightforward, he assured me after I laid out my case. And if he contests? I asked, thinking of Alex's spiteful nature. Mr. Henderson leaned back, steepling his fingers. He can try, but the prenup is clear. Plus, if he's been as reckless as you say, he won't have much ground to stand on. Reassured, I followed his advice and hired a detective. The findings were like a punch to the gut. Alex's affair with one of his nurses wasn't just a fling, it had been going on for years. That, on top of his professional blunders? It was worse than I thought. Fueled by a mix of betrayal and righteous anger, I went to his hospital, met with the administration, and laid it all out. The affair, the botched surgery, his drinking. I wasn't vindictive, but I couldn't let him play with people's lives, not anymore. The fallout was swift. A few days later, Alex's voice, ragged and desperate, crackled through my phone. "You've ruined me, Lena. Because of you, I've lost my license, my job. Mia and I have nothing now." His words tried to find the guilt in me, but I was fresh out. "You did this to yourself, Alex. You chose your actions. I'm just cleaning up the mess." After everything I'd been through, I knew it was time to turn the page. My company was my lifeline, not just financially, but emotionally too. It represented the independence and strength I had clawed back from the brink of my failed marriage. So, I decided to inject new life into it, to expand and reach heights that Alex had always scoffed at. Gathering my team at a cozy cafe felt like the first step towards this new chapter. The place was buzzing with energy, a mix of coffee aromas and the soft murmur of conversations setting the perfect backdrop. "Okay, team," I began, the team's eager faces in front of me. "We've been through the ringer, but it's made us stronger. It's time to scale up, push our boundaries. I know we can hit targets we've only dreamed of before." The meeting turned into a brainstorming session, ideas flying like sparks, igniting possibilities I hadn't even considered. We left the cafe buzzing with plans and a sense of unity that had been missing for too long. Riding this wave of positivity, I agreed to an interview with a local TV channel. They were interested in the story of a woman who had turned personal adversity into professional success. The day of the interview, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. This was more than just publicity, it was my story, my truth. Then came the opportunity to tell my story on a local TV channel. The interviewer was keen to highlight the success of my MLM company, pointing out the million turnover like it was a badge of honor. And in a way, it was. The interviewer, a sharp, insightful woman named Marla, didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Lena, your company has seen remarkable growth, even through your personal challenges. What drives you?" Sitting across from her, the camera suddenly didn't seem so intimidating. "It's the belief in what we do. And, personally, proving to myself and everyone who doubted me that I can rise above challenges. Success is the best revenge." The interview aired a few days later. The response was overwhelming, messages of support flooding in, not just for the business, but for me. It was vindicating, a testament to my journey. Then, Alex called. His voice was smoother than I remembered, dripping with a sweetness that didn't reach his eyes. Lena, I saw your interview. Impressive. About the divorce, let's rethink this. We can start over. I couldn't help but laugh, a genuine release of all the pent-up ridicule. Start over? After you realized I'm doing well? Alex, you're predictable. He tried to charm his way through. Come on, Lena. We were good together. Let's give it another shot. I cut him off, my voice firm. The divorce is happening, Alex. My lawyer will be in touch about the financial compensation for your adventures. He lost his cool then. You think you can just walk away and take everything? I'll fight you for every penny. Remember the prenup you insisted on? I reminded him coldly. You won't get a dime of my earnings. You're the one who wanted this arrangement. The line went silent, his defeat almost palpable. Hanging up, I felt a rush of liberation. This was more than just a legal victory, it was reclaiming my dignity, my independence. A week after all the drama settled, I found Mia, my stepdaughter, waiting outside my apartment. It was a surprise, seeing her there, dressed down in a way that I'd always suggested was more appropriate, but she'd never taken to heart before. It felt like a calculated move, designed to tug at my heartstrings, or open my wallet, or maybe both. Can we talk? She asked, her voice softer than I remembered. All right, come in, I said, stepping aside to let her enter. This was the first time she'd ever been to my place, and her eyes darted around, taking in the modest furnishings and the neatness I maintained. She hesitated before starting. I want to live with you. I can't stand being with Dad anymore. I looked at her, really looked at her, and all I could see were dollar signs in her eyes. It was clear this wasn't about finding a nurturing home, it was about securing a more comfortable one. Mia, you know that's not possible, I said firmly. I can see what you're trying to do, and it's not going to work. She broke down then, tears and promises pouring out. I'll change. I'll do anything you ask. Just please, don't make me go back there. It was hard, watching her crumble like that, but I knew it was all part of her act. Mia, my decision is final. I can't help you. Guiding her to the door, I could feel her desperation, but it didn't sway me. Her tears didn't seem real anymore, not after everything. After she left, the divorce proceedings moved quickly. Alex's infidelity, now out in the open, made things simpler on my end. I received financial compensation, a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but a victory nonetheless. Blocking their numbers was the last step, cutting the final thread that connected us. It was over, truly over this time. I was free, ready to rebuild my life on my terms, without the shadows of their manipulation darkening my doorstep again. After closing the chapter on my marriage and stepping away from the shadows of betrayal, I focused all my energy on my business and personal growth. My company was not just surviving, it was thriving, expanding in ways I hadn't dared to dream before. One day, as I was reviewing sales reports, Jen, my faithful companion and assistant, walked into my office, her face alight with excitement. You won't believe the numbers this quarter, Lena. We've outdone ourselves. I smiled, leaning back in my chair. Hit me with the good news. We've doubled our sales, and the new marketing strategy? It's a goldmine. People love the authenticity we're bringing to the table, Jen announced, practically bouncing on the spot. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound bright and genuine. That's incredible, Jen. It's all thanks to the hard work and dedication of this team. We've built something amazing here. As Jen left my office, full of plans and preparations, I took a moment to soak it all in. The silence of the room was a stark contrast to the chaos of my past, a testament to how far I'd come. I had not only rebuilt my life, but elevated it, creating success and stability out of the ruins left behind by Alex and Mia. My phone rang, breaking the silence. It was a call from a community organization asking if I would be interested in mentoring young women starting their own businesses. The opportunity to give back, To help others navigate the treacherous waters of entrepreneurship and personal growth felt like the perfect next step. I'd be honored, I told them, my voice steady and sure. There's nothing I'd like more than to help others find their path, just as I found mine. Hanging up, I felt a profound sense of contentment. My journey had come full circle, from struggling to stand on my own 2 feet to being in a position to lift others up. You know how they say life can flip on a dime? That's exactly what happened to me at this party. My friend Jess had been nagging me for weeks to come out and meet her bunch of incredible friends. Honestly, I was more into a quiet night with my reports and market analysis, but Jess wouldn't have any of it. Sarah, you need to get out more. Come on, it'll be fun, she insisted. So, there I was, in my least uncomfortable party dress, nursing a glass of wine and sticking out like a sore thumb among strangers. The place was buzzing, people laughing and chatting away. I stuck close to Jess, who seemed to know everyone. She was in the middle of introducing me to a couple of her friends when he walked in. Tom. Jess's face lit up. Oh, you gotta meet Tom, she said, dragging me through the crowd. Tom was this average-looking guy, nothing like the flashy types you'd expect at these gatherings. He had a sad smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Jess introduced us, and for some reason, we clicked. Maybe it was the way he talked about his daughter, Lily, with such warmth and pride. Or maybe it was his candidness about being a widower and raising her alone. Whatever it was, it got me. We found ourselves away from the crowd, sitting on some ridiculously oversized cushions. So, Sarah, Jess tells me you're into stocks and all that Wall Street stuff. Tom started, his voice rough but friendly. Yeah, something like that. I analyze investment opportunities, help people grow their money. Sounds boring, I know, I replied, trying to make my job sound less nerdy than it was. Nah, that sounds pretty damn impressive. Wish I knew a thing or two about handling money like that, he chuckled, taking a sip of his beer. We talked about everything and nothing: movies, books, the nightmare of dating. I found myself laughing more than I had in months. Tom had this easy way about him, making you feel like you'd known him forever. You know, I didn't want to come tonight. Socializing isn't exactly my strong suit, I confessed, feeling unusually open. Tell me about it. I only came because Jess promised Lily could tag along for a bit. Wanted her to meet some normal adults, whatever that means, Tom said, rolling his eyes. The conversation shifted to Lily, and I could see the light in Tom's eyes when he talked about her. She's something else, my Lily. Smart, kind, a bit too cheeky for her own good, he said, a proud smile spreading across his face. I was intrigued. She sounds wonderful. Raising a kid on your own, that's got to be tough. Tom shrugged, his expression turning serious. It's not easy, but Lily makes it all worth it. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. As the party wound down, I realized I didn't want this conversation to end. Tom felt like a breath of fresh air in my calculated, routine life. Hey, maybe we could grab a coffee sometime? Talk more about market trends, or whatever? I found myself saying, surprising even myself. Tom's smile was the answer I hoped for. I'd like that. It's been a long time since I had a reason to look forward to something. Very soon I met Tom's daughter, and she was like a breath of fresh air. We quickly became friends, which made her father very happy. That's how a simple meeting turned into a real love affair. After Tom and I decided to tie the knot, it was clear we wanted something simple, no fancy dresses or grand churches. Just us, my folks, and Lily, who was more excited than anyone. The day was plain but perfect, filled with genuine smiles and a few happy tears. Moving into Tom's house afterwards, I was buzzing with ideas to make the place feel more like ours, not just his. My new life meant working from home, which my boss was surprisingly cool about. It gave me the chance to really bond with Lily. I'd pick her up from school, and we'd chat about everything under the sun on our way to her ballet classes. She started calling me Mom, which warmed my heart every single time. Creating a cozy home for us became my new project, filling it with love and laughter. But, as the months rolled by, things with Tom started shifting, so subtly at first. He'd make offhand comments about dinner being too bland or too salty. "Sarah, what's this supposed to be?" Tom would ask, poking at a casserole I'd spent hours on. "Supposed to be your dinner, but if you're gonna act all Gordon Ramsay about it, maybe you should cook tomorrow," I'd retort, trying to keep the mood light. He didn't. Instead, the critiques piled up. My appearance became his next target. "Babe, when did you last hit the gym? You're looking different," Tom dropped casually one evening, his eyes skimming over me like I was a fixer-upper. "Guess I've been too busy being a stepmom and working from home." "But thanks for the heads up," I snapped back, the sting of his words hitting harder than expected. Lily, bless her, was my silver lining. She and I grew closer, our bond unaffected by the growing tension between her dad and me. "Mom, can you help me with my homework?" Lily would ask, her bright eyes always looking up to me for guidance. "Of course, sweetie. Let's tackle it together," I'd reply, grateful for her presence and the normalcy it brought. Even as Tom and I drifted apart, Lily and I stuck together like glue. I found solace in our little talks and her ballet recitals. Yet, despite my efforts to keep our home a haven, Tom's dissatisfaction seemed to seep into every corner. "You know, Sarah, maybe you should try one of those online cooking classes. Spice things up a bit," Tom suggested one night, his tone laced with an undercurrent of displeasure. "Or maybe we could try eating out more. Give your taste buds a break from my terrible cooking," I'd counter, half joking but deeply wounded. Life at home started feeling less like a family and more like walking on eggshells. Tom's attitude took a nosedive, and it wasn't just about small things anymore. He set these crazy rules like expecting a brand new dish for dinner every single day. It was as if he thought I was some kind of gourmet chef instead of his partner. One evening, I was in the kitchen, trying to whip up something new to keep him happy. I was juggling work emails on my phone, stirring a pot, and mentally planning my next day. Tom walked in, a scowl already forming on his face. "What's for dinner?" he asked, his tone sharp. "I'm trying something new, a recipe I found online. Thought we could use a little variety," I said, trying to sound upbeat. He just humphed, peering over my shoulder. "Doesn't look very appetizing. You know, when you decided to work from home, I thought you'd at least manage to keep the house in order and cook decent meals." His words stung. "Tom, you know I'm working too, right? It's not like I'm sitting around all day. Plus, I pick up Lily, help her with homework, visit my parents." He cut me off. Yeah, always the same excuse. "You're at home, aren't you? Shouldn't be too hard to keep things tidy and cook properly." I bit my tongue, holding back the tears. It was becoming a nightly ritual, this dance of disappointment and criticism. One night, as we settled on the couch to watch TV, he started on about my appearance. Pointing at the women on the screen, he said, "Look at them, they're about your age, right? Why do they look so much younger and better?" I tried to keep my voice level. "Tom, those women have all day to focus on looking good. They likely have personal trainers, chefs, and who knows what cosmetic work done." But he wouldn't have it. "Excuses, Sarah. It's all about priorities. You used to care about how you looked." I felt deflated, worn out. It wasn't just about the cooking or the cleaning anymore, it was a constant comparison, a reminder that I wasn't enough. During these times, Lily was my only solace. Now a teenager, she saw through her dad's behavior. "Mom, you don't deserve this. Why do you put up with it? You should just leave him," she'd say, her words filled with worry and anger. But I couldn't bring myself to believe that the Tom I fell in love with was completely gone. "He's under a lot of stress, Lily. I believe he still loves us. He'll change," I'd respond, more to convince myself than her. It's been a roller coaster, to say the least. 15 years of ups and downs, but mostly, it feels like I've been riding a slow descent into a place I never thought I'd find myself. Now, at 55, with my stepdaughter Lily living her own life, though we talk every day, sharing secrets and stories like we used to, life threw me another curveball. Cancer. The word hit me like a freight train, but somehow, I managed to keep my composure long enough to tell Tom. His reaction? Well, it was something. Not anger, not sadness, just disappointment. Not because of the diagnosis, but because I wouldn't be around to cook his meals or clean the house like I used to. What am I supposed to do now? Look after myself, he had said, his voice laced with irritation rather than concern. I was stunned, not sure how to respond to such blatant selfishness. It's not like I expected a dramatic outpouring of love and support, but a little empathy wouldn't have hurt. His lack of concern cut deeper than any diagnosis could. So, I started treatment, spending more time in the hospital than at home. My parents, bless their hearts, visited whenever they could, despite their own health issues. Lily, too, was a constant presence, her calls and visits a bright spot in those dreary hospital days. Tom? He never showed. Not once. It hurt, more than I wanted to admit. Even after everything, part of me hoped he'd come around, show that he cared, even just a little. During one of Lily's visits, I couldn't hide my disappointment any longer. I can't believe he hasn't shown up. Not even once, I confided, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Lily, ever the straight shooter, didn't mince her words. Mom, you deserve so much better. I've been saying it for years. It's like he doesn't even see you. You're fighting this battle, and where is he? Nowhere. You need to think about what's best for you now. I knew she was right, but it's not easy to let go of 15 years, even if they weren't all good. Deep down, I still harbored that small flicker of hope that things could get better, that Tom would change. But lying in that hospital bed, facing my own mortality, I started to see things more clearly. Maybe it was time to start thinking about what I needed, not just what Tom wanted. The revelation came on a Tuesday, just another ordinary day until Lily walked into my hospital room with a look that spelled trouble. I could tell something was up the moment I saw her. Lily never was good at hiding her feelings. Mom, we need to talk. She started, avoiding my gaze. That's when my stomach tied itself into knots. Lily calling me Mom was always a balm to my soul, but today, it felt like the prelude to bad news. What's wrong, Lily? I asked, bracing myself. It's about Dad. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. He's seeing someone else, Mom. And it's serious. He introduced her to me last week. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Not that our marriage was perfect, but to hear he'd moved on so blatantly was a different kind of hurt. How long? Was all I managed to muster, my voice barely above a whisper. A while, I guess. I'm so sorry, Mom. I thought you should know. Lily's voice cracked, her usual toughness giving way to concern. I sat there, trying to process the news. Betrayed, yes, but surprised? Not entirely. Tom hadn't been a husband to me in a long time. Still, the confirmation of his infidelity stung. The shock of it hit me hard, though a part of me wasn't surprised. Tom's late nights, the sudden interest in looking younger, the new cologne, it all made sense now. Yet, hearing it out loud from Lily felt like a betrayal of a whole different kind. Does he think this is okay? Introducing her to you like it's all normal? I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. Lily shrugged. He's convinced himself you're already gone, Mom. Says it's time he moved on for his happiness. It's like he doesn't even care about how this would hurt you. I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. His happiness, huh? What about all those years I spent trying to make him happy? What a joke. And that's when it hit me, Tom had never really seen me. Not the real me. He saw a caretaker, a cook, a cleaner, but never his wife. And here I was, battling cancer, while he played house with someone else. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of something fierce within me. Anger, yes, but also determination. I'd been living for Tom, worrying about his meals, his house, his happiness. It was time to start living for myself. Lily wiped away a tear, looking determined all of a sudden. What are you gonna do? You can't let him just get away with this. A cold resolve settled over me. Tom's actions, his complete disregard for our marriage, it all clarified one thing. It was time to close this chapter for good. Tell him I agree to the divorce, I said firmly, surprising even myself with the decisiveness in my voice. It's clear he's moved on, and so should I. Lily's eyes widened. Really? Just like that? Yes, just like that. He thinks he can replace me so easily, let him try. But he'll regret this, Lily. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day. He'll see what he's thrown away. Lily stood up, her stance shifting from worried to warrior-like. I'll tell him. And Mom, we'll get through this. Screw him and his midlife crisis fantasy. You're worth $1 million of her. Her fiery spirit in that moment gave me strength. I was about to embark on a tough journey, battling both cancer and a crumbling marriage, but I wasn't alone. I had Lily, and together, we were formidable. Thanks, Lily. We've got this, I said, a small smile breaking through the gloom. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would reclaim my life and my dignity, with my loyal stepdaughter by my side. 2 days had felt like an eternity, each moment dragging on as I lay in that hospital bed, my body fighting a battle I hadn't signed up for. Then Tom walked in, his presence as cold as the chill running down my spine. The smirk on his face was something out of a nightmare, but this was my reality. He looked me over, his eyes devoid of any warmth. Look at you, all sick and pitiful. Can't say I'm surprised. You've let yourself go, haven't you? Found myself someone much better. Younger, prettier, healthier. He gloated, his words dripping with disdain. His words cut deeper than any knife could, but I was done showing him my pain. He threw the divorce papers on my bed, a challenge in his eyes. I took a deep breath, steadying my resolve. I picked up the pen and signed, each stroke a silent vow to myself that this was the beginning of my liberation, not my defeat. You're just as weak-willed as ever. Pathetic, he sneered, a twisted satisfaction in his gaze. I met his stare, my voice steady. If that's what helps you sleep at night, Tom. The confusion flickered across his face, replaced quickly by his usual arrogance. He strutted out, leaving a trail of bitterness in his wake. As soon as the door clicked shut, I reached for my phone with a determination that surprised even me. I called Lily, my voice stronger than I felt. Lily, it's done. But I need you to do something for me, I said, pausing to make sure I had her full attention. Tell your dad about the $3 million I plan to leave you. It's important he knows. There was a brief silence on the other end, and I could almost see the gears turning in her head. Mom, are you sure? He's going to flip out. A small smile tugged at my lips. That's the point, darling. True to form, Tom's reaction was immediate and as predictable as ever. My phone became an incessant, vibrating companion, lighting up with his attempts to reach me. With each missed call, I felt an inch taller, a bit stronger. I watched the number climb, 50, 60, 70 missed calls, and with it, my resolve solidified. I couldn't help but laugh, a sound that felt foreign yet fitting for the moment. Here I was, supposedly at my weakest, yet I'd never felt more empowered. I had taken the first real step towards freeing myself from the chains of Tom's manipulation and cruelty. The sun was just peeking through the blinds when Tom burst into my hospital room the next morning, desperation etched in every line of his face. His sudden change of heart was as transparent as it was pathetic. Sarah, I've been a fool. I see that now. I love you, and I'm ready to leave her and start over with you. We can remarry, start fresh, he pleaded, his hands outstretched as if he could physically pull me back into the life we once shared. I couldn't help but laugh, a deep, genuine sound that seemed to startle him. Tom, you've shown me exactly who you are. After years of neglect, cruelty, and now this betrayal? And you think what? A few sweet words and it's all forgiven? He blanched, taken aback by my reaction. Sarah, please. I mean it. I realized I made a mistake. I shook my head, still incredulous. A mistake? Tom, you deliberately chose to step out on our marriage, humiliated me while I was at my lowest. No, it's too late for regrets. His desperation turned to anger, his face reddening. You'll regret this. I'll make sure of it. I'll sue you for every penny of that hidden money of yours. The threat was laughable. Go ahead and try, Tom. That money? It's in my father's name. He made those investments, all legally binding and documented. You won't get a dime. The realization of his powerlessness hit him hard. His anger dissipated into sobs of frustration, a pitiful sight that had the guards rushing in. As they escorted him out, I moved to the window, watching him. There he was, the man I'd spent so many years with, looking so defeated and alone. Yet, I felt no pity. He was reaping what he'd sown, and in that moment, I knew I was finally free. Justice prevails, I whispered to myself, a smile touching my lips. In that hospital room, I made a promise to myself. No longer would I be defined by the failings of my marriage or the cruelty of a man who couldn't appreciate the love and loyalty I'd offered. It was time to rebuild, to focus on my health, my happiness, and the future I deserved. The battle with cancer was like riding the world's most terrifying roller coaster, one where you can't see the track ahead. Months of treatment stretched out, with good days where hope flickered bright and bad days where it dimmed to nearly nothing. Remission would come, lifting me up, only for exacerbation to drag me back down into the fight. But I kept fighting, every single day, with every bit of strength I had, both for me and for Lily. Finally, the doctors gave me the news I'd been dreaming of. I was healthy, the cancer was gone. Walking out of that hospital felt surreal, like stepping into a new life waiting to be written. The fresh start wasn't just symbolic, it was real, tangible, and it was mine for the taking. Recovery wasn't just about the physical, it was mental, emotional, a total overhaul of life as I knew it. The day I was discharged from the hospital marked not just the end of my treatment, but the beginning of something new. Something mine. Lily picked me up, her car loaded with my few belongings. Ready to start fresh, Mom? She asked, her smile bright and encouraging. I couldn't help but return her smile. More than ready, kiddo. We drove to my new place, a modest house I'd bought with the money I'd wisely invested over the years. It wasn't just a house, though, it was a promise of new beginnings, of freedom. As we unpacked, Lily chatted about decorating ideas, about painting the walls and planting a garden. This is going to be a place of happiness, Mom. You'll see. We'll make it our sanctuary. Her enthusiasm was infectious. For the first time in years, I felt light, like a weight had been lifted. I'd like that, Lily. A sanctuary sounds perfect. We took a break, sitting amidst boxes, with takeout containers between us. You know, I've been thinking, I started, about what comes next. I want to use this chance not just to heal, but to rediscover who I am, who I want to be. Lily nodded, taking my hand. I've got your back, Mom. Always. And hey, you're already doing it. Look at how far you've come. She was right. The journey from being trapped in a loveless marriage to standing on my own 2 feet hadn't been easy. But here I was, ready to face the world on my terms. I'm thinking of starting a blog, I mused. Sharing my story, maybe help others who've been in similar situations. That's an amazing idea. Lily's eyes sparkled with pride. You've got so much wisdom to share. Plus, you're pretty badass, you know? I laughed, the sound bright and genuine. Thanks, Lily. I guess I am, aren't I? Said and done. I started my own personal blog, in which I shared the details of my struggle with cancer. People in the comments supported me, shared their own experiences. It was touching and reassuring at the same time. During one of our quiet evenings, Lily shared her own monumental decision. Mom, I've cut ties with Dad, she said, her voice steady, but I could see the turmoil in her eyes. After everything, I see you as my real mom. He chose his path, and I've chosen mine, with you. Hearing her call me mom in that context, knowing the weight it carried, filled me with an indescribable mix of pride and sorrow. Sorrow for the broken bridges in her life, but pride in her strength and in the bond we shared. Lily, there's something I've been meaning to tell you, I started, taking her hands in mine. When the time comes, I'll be leaving everything to you, the house, the $3 million, all of it. You're my family, my future. Lily looked at me, tears brimming in her eyes, but a smile breaking through. I don't need any of that, Mom. Just having you is enough. But thank you, for everything. In that moment, any lingering shadows of the past faded away. We were family, bound not by blood, but by choice, by love. And as we looked ahead, the future wasn't just a blank page, it was a canvas waiting for us to fill it with color, with life. Ever since I can remember, my life's been all about fish and farm. Dad had this big vision of making our place the top trout hatchery in the country, and darn if he didn't make it happen. I was right there beside him, knee-deep in pond water, learning the ropes. It wasn't just a job, it was our life, our legacy. I grew up chasing the shadows of fish in the water, learning the ins and outs of the business before I even knew what the word business meant. Anna, Dad would call. Get over here. Time you learned how to sort 'em proper. Sorting the trout was an art, separating the vibrant, thrashing life into groups that would define their journey in our farm. One evening, when the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Dad pulled me aside. He had that look in his eyes, the one that said he was about to impart wisdom. Look, kiddo, he started, his voice serious. I ain't gonna be around forever. He gestured to the expanse of water and land that stretched out before us. This is gonna be yours. You gotta be ready to take care of it, expand it, make it something even bigger. I remember laughing it off then. Come on, Dad. You're gonna outlive us all, I joked, not wanting to think about a world without him. He just shook his head, his eyes softening. Just promise me, Anna. Promise me you'll keep this place alive, make it thrive. Then, when I hit 25, cancer took Dad away. It hit us like a ton of bricks. Mom, she just couldn't handle it, got real sick herself. So, there I was, stuck with running the whole shebang. Dad always had big dreams for the place, and I wasn't about to let them die with him. He'd talked about branching out into ornamental fish and even starting up a livestock bit, considering all the land we had. Sounded like a plan, but with Mom sick and the farm needing all hands on deck, my dreams had to take a back seat. I hired a few folks to help out with the heavy lifting. Running a fish farm's no joke. There's the feeding, the cleaning, making sure everything's running smooth. It's a never-ending cycle of work, but someone's gotta do it. Late nights, I'd find myself by the pond, just staring at the water, thinking about Dad. He wanted this life for me, but man, it was tough going it alone. You got this, girl, he'd say if he could see me now, trying to juggle it all. But those moments of missing him, they couldn't last long. There was always something needing doing. Workers to oversee, fish food to buy, tanks to clean, and not to mention looking after Mom. She was a fighter, but this had knocked her down hard. It wasn't easy, keeping things afloat. But I was determined. Dad had built something amazing here, and I wasn't about to let it sink on my watch. We're doing this, Dad, I'd whisper to the night air. I'm not letting your dream die. I'm not one for the glitz and glam, give me muddy boots and Dawn's first light over a fancy dress any day. But when the invite came for that charity dinner, something inside me whispered, why not? Maybe it was the endless days cooped up with fish and feed, or Mom's soft encouragement from her sickbed, her way of saying, live a little, honey. So, I swapped my overalls for the only decent dress I owned and stepped into a world so far removed from my own. The dinner was a whirlwind of faces and small talk, a sea of glitter and fake smiles that I navigated with polite nods. Then, out of nowhere, these two brothers, Jake and Chris, crashed into my world. They were like a gust of fresh air in a stifled room, with their easy laughs and lack of pretense. "Never thought I'd meet a genuine fish farmer here," Jake said, his grin infectious, as we stood awkwardly by the buffet. "Yeah, well, I'm rethinking my life choices as we speak," I shot back, unable to suppress a smile. His brother, Chris, chuckled, his camera never far from his hand, capturing every moment as if it was gold. Their jokes were simple, their demeanor unpolished, and suddenly, I didn't feel so out of place. When Jake asked about the farm, his curiosity seemed genuine, a rarity in these circles. "So, what's the big deal with fish farming? Sounds fishy to me," he joked, and I found myself laughing more freely than I had in months. His interest didn't wane as the night went on. Instead of boring me with tales of their online escapades, Jake listened intently as I spoke of my dreams for the farm, of the weight of my father's legacy on my shoulders. When I let slip about the farm's turnover in a moment of unguarded pride, his eyes lit up, not with greed, but with what I took for admiration. "Damn, that's impressive. You're doing something right, huh?" His words were like a balm, soothing the constant worry that I was failing my family. When he suggested visiting the farm, I surprised myself by agreeing. Watching him and Chris wander through the hatcheries, their laughter bouncing off the water, something in me shifted. Jake's excitement at everything, from the most mundane task to the intricate details of fish breeding, felt like a validation of everything I'd been striving for. "You know, I could get used to this," Jake said, his hand brushing mine as we stood watching the sunset over the pond. His voice held a warmth that made my heart skip. It was crazy, all of it, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of something new, something thrilling. Mom, ever the voice of reason, didn't share my enthusiasm. "Be careful, dear. Men like him, they don't settle well with our kind of life. It's too real for them," she warned, her voice frail but filled with concern. I wanted to believe her, I did. But Jake's promises, his vows to stand by me, to embrace the farm life, they wove a spell I desperately wanted to cling to. "He's different, Mom. He wants this, us, more than anything else," I defended, my voice laced with a hope I hadn't felt since Dad passed. Our wedding was a simple affair, a celebration of love amidst the backdrop of our life's work. Chris filmed it all, his camera capturing the raw, unfiltered joy of two worlds colliding. The farm, with its endless skies and the gentle lull of water, bore witness to our vows. It was perfect, despite the nagging doubt that occasionally whispered, "What if Mom's right?" Life on the farm took a new turn when Jake moved in. Initially, his enthusiasm seemed genuine. He'd wander around with his camera, capturing every mundane task as if it were a spectacle. But as days turned into weeks, the facade began to crumble. "Hey, babe, watch this," he'd call out, gesturing for me to redo a task, just so he could get a better angle. It was all for show. The reality hit hard one afternoon as I was knee-deep in pond maintenance, and Jake was nowhere to be found. I spotted him eventually, lounging under the shade of an old oak, phone in hand, lost to the world. Marching over, I couldn't hide my frustration. "Thought you were gonna help today. These ponds don't clean themselves, you know." He looked up, a lazy smile spreading across his face. I am. Just taking a little break. Gotta keep the fans updated, right?" It was the same excuse every time. His help was minimal, his interest fleeting unless it served his online persona. Even when he did pitch in, it was half-hearted, his efforts more a hindrance than a help. I remember the first time I tried to teach him about the feed ratios for the trout. "So, you gotta make sure it's precise. Too much and you're wasting feed, too little and they won't grow right," I explained, handing him the scoop. He took it, nodding, but his attention was elsewhere. "Got it. But hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did a dramatic feeding frenzy video? Imagine the views on that." The seriousness of our work, the balance of life in our hands, reduced to mere content for views. It grated on me, but love has a way of painting red flags as mere decorations. My mom, ever the observant one, despite her illness, saw through him from the start. One evening, as I sat by her bedside, she took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "That boy, he's not here for the farm, or for you, not really. You see it, don't you?" I wanted to deny it, to defend him, but the words stuck in my throat. Deep down, I knew. Yet, acknowledging it felt like admitting a defeat I wasn't ready to face. After yet another day, where his promise to help turned into hours of him fiddling with his phone, I had enough. "Jake, I really need you to actually help around here. Not just for show," I said, the annoyance clear in my voice as I wiped the sweat from my brow. The farm wasn't a playground, it was hard work, and I was doing it all. He paused, something in his expression shifting. For a moment, I thought maybe he finally got it. "Look, I know I haven't been all hands-on with the farm stuff," he started, his tone surprisingly serious. His eyes flicked to his brother, who was leaning against the barn door, watching us. "But how about I handle the finances, huh? Take that load off you?" His brother nodded, almost imperceptibly, but I caught it. A silent conversation seemed to pass between them, one I wasn't privy to. It gave me pause, but the sheer thought of having one less thing on my to-do list was tempting. "You sure you're up for that?" I asked, skepticism heavy in my voice. Managing the books wasn't glamorous work, but it was critical to keeping the farm afloat. "Yeah, babe, I got this. Trust me," Jake said, with a confidence that didn't quite reach his eyes. His brother pushed off from the door and added, "Jake's got a head for numbers. You won't regret it." Maybe it was the exhaustion talking, or the part of me that still wanted to believe in the man I married, but I agreed. "All right, you take over the finances. But Jake, this is serious. We can't afford any mistakes." He nodded eagerly, almost too eagerly. "You got it. I'll take care of everything. You won't have to worry about a thing." 6 months into our marriage, Jake hit a rough patch with his vlogging. Views were down, and so was the money. One evening, he dropped the bombshell. "Babe, I gotta head to the city, figure some stuff out with my brother. The channel's tanking," he said, not even looking up from his phone. I was slicing vegetables for dinner, and I paused, knife in midair. "And what about the farm? What about us?" My voice was calm, but inside, I felt a storm brewing. He shrugged, packing his camera gear with more care than he'd ever shown our life together. "It's just for a while. You can handle things here, right?" I nodded, tight-lipped. Deep down, I knew I could handle the farm, I always had. But watching him walk out that door, I felt a loneliness clamp down on me, cold and unforgiving. Not 2 weeks later, Mom's health took a nosedive. She had been my rock, and now she was slipping through my fingers. When she passed, I was a mess. I called Jake, desperate for a shred of comfort. "Jake, Mom's gone. I need you." I sobbed into the phone. There was a pause, and then, "Babe, I'm swamped. The city's buzzing, and we're onto something big. I can't just drop everything." His words hit like a slap. Too busy. For his own wife's grief. I hung up, the phone slipping through my numb fingers. 3 agonizing months later, Jake decided to grace us with his presence. He strutted onto the farm as if he hadn't abandoned me, when I needed him most. "Look at this place. It's been too long. But hey, I've got news," he announced, a grin plastered on his face. I was in the middle of feeding the fish, my hands covered in muck. "News?" I echoed, not sure I wanted to hear what he considered important. "Yeah, found a new feed supplier. Cheaper, faster growth. We're gonna save a ton," he said, his eyes alight with what I assumed was a rare flicker of responsibility. I straightened up, wiping my hands on my apron. "We don't use chemicals, Jake. You know this. Our reputation is built on quality, natural growth." He waved me off, his excitement undimmed. "It's just business, babe. We need to think about profits." Besides, I've got even bigger plans. That caught my attention. Bigger plans? He nodded, eagerly. A massive event right here. Celebrities, influencers, the works. It'll put us on the map. I stared at him, disbelief and anger swirling. An event? With all these people, and fireworks? Do you even understand what that could do to the fish, to the farm? His face fell into a frown, his patience thinning. It's decided, all right? It's gonna be epic. I watched, helpless, as the preparations began. Trucks rolled in, carrying equipment that had no place on a farm. Tents sprung up like mushrooms after rain, transforming the land into a foreign spectacle. As the day of the event dawned, the farm no longer felt like my sanctuary. It was invaded, overtaken by strangers with no care for the life we nurtured. The air buzzed with anticipation, a stark contrast to the usual serene mornings. Jake was everywhere, playing the gracious host, while I lingered on the sidelines, watching the chaos unfold. The fish ponds were off limits, but that didn't stop the occasional guest from wandering too close, their curiosity piqued by the very heart of our farm they knew nothing about. As evening approached, the concert began. Music vibrated through the air, an alien sound against the backdrop of nature. I watched from afar, my heart sinking with each beat. Then came the fireworks. Bright, loud, and utterly terrifying. I could only imagine the panic it caused beneath the water's surface, the home to our precious fish, now a battleground of noise and light. The fireworks had just fizzled out, leaving behind a smoky silence that hung over the farm like a bad omen. I was clearing up some of the mess left by the guests when I heard them, Jake and his brother, huddled together in the shadows, their voices low but charged with excitement. That was epic, man. Did you see the views rolling in? Our channel's gonna explode after this, Jake boasted, his voice carrying a note of triumph that made my skin crawl. His brother chuckled, a greasy sound that filled the night. Yeah, those clowns eat it right up. Fools, all of 'em. Easy as pie. I crept closer, hidden by the darkness, my heart pounding in my chest. This was the man I married, speaking so coldly, so calculatingly about the very people who supported him. Then their conversation took a turn, sending shivers down my spine. So, about the farm, Jake's brother whispered, his voice barely audible. You think she'll fall for it? Jake snorted, a sound dripping with contempt. Of course, she will. She's clueless, a complete fool. Just a little charm, and she'll sign whatever I put in front of her. Might not even have to forge it. They shared a low, conspiratorial laugh, and something in me broke. My mother's warnings, the doubts I'd pushed aside, all came crashing down in that moment. The next evening, at dinner, I faced them both. Jake, with his easy smile and lying eyes, and his brother, the silent accomplice. They exchanged quick glances, thinking I was none the wiser. I smiled back, a mask of complacency over my raging thoughts. Dinner's great, isn't it? Hope the farm's growing on you, Jake, I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. Oh, it is. It's fantastic here, Anna. We're gonna do great things, he replied, reaching for my hand across the table. His touch, once comforting, now felt like a serpent's coil. His brother nodded, adding, Yeah, we've got big plans. This place has so much potential. I withdrew my hand gently, still smiling. I'm glad to hear it. I've got some plans of my own, you know. For the farm. They paused, a flicker of unease crossing their faces. Oh? Like what? Jake asked, his voice edged with a hint of caution. Just some ideas I've been toying with. You'll see, I said, keeping my tone light, airy, as if I hadn't just uncovered their betrayal. Right after the dust settled from that fiasco of an event, I knew I had to do something drastic. First stop was the family lawyer, Mr. Davis. His office smelled of leather and old books, a comfort in the chaos. Mr. Davis, I need to lock down the farm's finances. Jake can't have access anymore, I said, straight to the point. He raised his eyebrows, peering at me over his glasses. That serious, Anna? Alright, let's get the paperwork started. Then, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a PI, a guy named Carl, who had a reputation for getting to the bottom of things. A week later, he laid it all out for me. Jake and his brother had been funneling money out of the farm, spending it on their wild ideas and pocketing the rest. My heart sank. I was furious, not just at them, but at myself, for letting it happen. Armed with evidence, I marched to the police station. Handing over the documents, I felt a mix of relief and dread. "They've been stealing from the farm," I told the officer, my voice steady, despite the storm inside. When Jake and his brother got picked up by the cops, Jake had the nerve to call me. "Anna, you gotta bail us out. It's a misunderstanding," he pleaded over the phone. I couldn't help but laugh. "Misunderstanding? I think it's pretty clear. Enjoy your stay," I replied, hanging up with a click. It felt like a weight lifted, but there was still work to do. I decided to go public with the whole mess. If Jake loved the spotlight so much, he was about to get it, just not in the way he wanted. I called up a local TV station and some of Jake's rival bloggers. "Come to the farm. See what his grand plans did," I told them. They came, cameras and all, capturing the aftermath of the event. Dead fish floated in the ponds, victims of the loud explosions and chaos. The smell was awful, a tangible sign of the damage done. Standing there, in front of the cameras, I told the story. This is what happens when fame and greed take over. This was our livelihood, and they nearly destroyed it for views. The backlash was immediate. The internet exploded with the truth of their actions, showcasing the dead fish, the ruined farm. Cartoonists had a field day with the brothers, turning them into caricatures of greed and folly. Jake's channel? It tanked, losing followers faster than a sinking ship sheds cargo. Advertisers pulled out, not wanting to touch him or his brother with a 10-foot pole. I wasn't done, though. Fueled by rage and a need for justice, I filed for divorce and slapped them with a lawsuit for every penny they cost me and the farm, tallying up to a cool $1,500,000. It felt like declaring war, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally fighting back. Riding the wave of support, I started my own YouTube channel. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my story, my family's legacy. Surprisingly, or maybe not so much, people rallied around me. Subscribers poured in, eager to see the farm's comeback story unfold. Jake tried to weasel his way back in, calling, texting, showing up with lame apologies. "Babe, let's talk about this. We can fix it," he'd plead, but I was done. Done with lies, done with him. I had a farm to rebuild and a future to secure. The court's decision was the final nail in the coffin of their schemes. The judge awarded me $1 million in damages. Watching Jake and his brother scramble to pay up, on top of facing charges for attempted fraud, was more satisfying than I'd like to admit. They were finished, professionally and publicly. The verdict was clear: they were frauds, and everyone knew it. In the end, they lost everything: their followers, their credibility, and any respect they might have had. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, casting a soft golden light over the farm, now bustling with life and more vibrant than ever. Standing by the fence, I watched the new day dawn, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long while. Mike, my oldest employee, walked up, a coffee mug in each hand, and handed me one. "Mornin', Anna. Looks like it's gonna be a good day." I took a sip, the warm bitterness of the coffee grounding me. "Yeah, it does. We've come a long way, haven't we?" He nodded, leaning on the fence beside me. "Sure have. Never thought I'd see this place lookin' this lively again. Those ornamental fish tanks are something else." Laughing, I glanced at the gleaming tanks filled with vibrant colors, a far cry from the traditional trout ponds we were used to. "They're beautiful, aren't they? And profitable too. Who would have thought?" Mike chuckled. "You did. That's who. Always knew you had a vision for this place. More than just trout and feed." The conversation shifted as we discussed the day's tasks when my phone buzzed. It was an email from a local school asking if we could host a field trip. "Looks like we're becoming a community staple," I said, showing Mike the email. "That's great news. Education's just as important as business. These kids could learn a lot from what you've built here," Mike said, a hint of pride in his voice. I smiled, the reality of what we were building here becoming clearer with each passing day. This farm wasn't just about recovery, it was about setting a new standard, about resilience, education, and moving forward. And as for the future? It was as bright as the morning sun stretching across the fields. There were plans to expand, ideas for sustainability projects, community outreach, and so much more. The betrayal that once threatened to define my story had instead paved the way for a new chapter, one filled with hope, growth, and new horizons. Mike's voice pulled me back to the present. "Ready to get started? Those fish aren't gonna feed themselves." Laughing, I nodded. "Let's do it. There's no place I'd rather be." As we walked back towards the heart of the farm, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready. Ready to face them head-on, with the same determination and spirit that had brought me this far. The future was unwritten, but for the first time in a long while, I was excited to see where the journey would take me. I never believed in fate, not until the day I bumped into Alex at the department store. It was one of those busy sale days, the kind where you find yourself elbow to elbow with strangers, all hunting for a bargain. That's where our story began, amidst the chaos and the discount signs. I'm Sarah, by the way, a librarian with a love for quiet spaces and the rustle of pages. My life was simple, routine, and I liked it that way. Then, Alex stormed in, like a character out of one of those romance novels I secretly enjoyed during my lunch breaks. He was a sales manager, a man who thrived in the hustle and the bustle, a stark contrast to my own world. "Hey, watch it!" I snapped as someone's hand brushed against mine, reaching for the last lamp on sale. I looked up, ready to unleash my frustration on the intruder, but my words faltered. There he was, Alex, with a grin that could light up the dim aisle we stood in. "Sorry about that," he chuckled, his hand still on the lamp I had my eyes on. But I saw it first. I raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Dream on. I've had my eye on this since I stepped into this aisle." The banter could have ended there, with one of us walking away in defeat. But Alex, with his easy charm, suggested, "How about we grab a coffee instead? My treat. You can tell me all about the other bargains you've snatched today." I was taken aback. Men like him didn't usually notice women like me, women who preferred the background, the sidelines. Yet, there was a sincerity in his eyes that caught me off guard. Against my better judgment, I found myself nodding, a small smile creeping up on my face. The coffee shop was crowded, but Alex found us a quiet corner. As we sat, sipping on our drinks, the conversation flowed effortlessly. He talked about his job, how he loved the challenge, the thrill of closing a deal. I shared my passion for books, how each page whisked me away to a different world. "You're interesting, Sarah," he said, his gaze intense. "Most people I meet are all about the surface stuff. But you've got depth." I could feel my cheeks heating up at his words. No one had ever described me like that before. "And you're not what I expected," I admitted. "I thought sales managers were all about the hard sell, the smooth talk." Alex laughed, a deep, rich sound that filled the space between us. "Guilty as charged. But there's more to me than just the job, you know." We talked until the coffee shop began to close, neither of us wanting the night to end. It was then that Alex asked for my number, his phone already in hand. "I'd like to do this again, Sarah." Without the argument over a lamp. I hesitated, a part of me wary of stepping into unknown territory. Yet, as I looked into his eyes, I saw a glimpse of something more, a connection I couldn't quite explain. So, I gave him my number, setting the stage for what would become the most tumultuous chapter of my life. Our chats turned into dates, dates into a relationship, and before I knew it, Alex and I were standing at the altar, promising each other forever. We moved into his house, a cozy little place that soon felt like home. Our dreams of starting a family, however, proved to be a challenge, testing our bond in ways I never imagined. Life has a way of flipping the script on you, doesn't it? For years, Alex and I chased the dream of having a kid, running the gamut of tests only to be told by doctors to keep the faith. We did, until we didn't. Somewhere down the line, hope turned into acceptance that it would just be the two of us. Only, that acceptance brewed a distance between Alex and me, a gap that widened with every late night he spent at work or with his buddies while I was left to stare at the empty rooms of our home. I really tried to bridge that gap. "Alex, maybe we should see someone, a professional to talk about this," I suggested one evening, mustering all the courage I had. He looked at me like I'd suggested selling the house to join the circus. "A shrink? For what? So they can tell us how to talk to each other?" "No way, Sarah." And just like that, the conversation was over before it even began. But life, unpredictable as ever, had another curveball in store. Feeling off one day led me to the hospital, tests, and then the shocker of a lifetime, I was pregnant. The joy of it overwhelmed me, a joy I couldn't wait to share with Alex. His reaction, though, was as cold as ice. "Pregnant? Sarah, you know how old you are, right? You're an old 39-year-old woman with your sores and problems. This is risky, dangerous even. Maybe we should think about not going through with it." His words hit me like a slap. Not go through with it? "Alex, this is our baby, our miracle." But the Alex standing in front of me wasn't the man I married. This version was distant, cold, and calculated. A miracle? Or a mistake? Think about it, Sarah. Pregnancy was anything but easy. My body felt like it was on a roller coaster, and my heart? Well, it was breaking. Alex's visits were few and far between, each one more awkward and strained than the last. Coming home from the hospital only meant returning to a house that felt less and less like a home. "You're not even working, Sarah." "I'm out here, busting my ass, and for what? So you can play house?" Alex threw those words at me one night, his frustration boiling over. I bit back the hurt, the anger. "Playing house? Is that what you think I'm doing?" "I'm carrying our child, Alex. Our child." But it was like talking to a wall. A wall that was packing its bags and moving farther away from me with each passing day. Our conversations dwindled to nothing, our interactions mere ghostly encounters. The man I once thought I'd grow old with had become a stranger, passing through the life of me and our soon-to-be child like a ship in the night. When I thought I'd faced the toughest battles, life proved me wrong. Giving birth to Daniel was both a miracle and a storm's beginning. Barely catching my breath from labor, the doctors hit me with news that felt like a punch to the gut. Daniel was sick, they said, he will be disabled, and everything that an ordinary child can do will become inaccessible to him. Hearing that, I felt my world tilt. It was one of those moments where everything slows down, and all you can hear is your heartbeat loud in your ears. But I had to be strong, for Daniel. I was reeling, trying to wrap my head around this new reality, when Alex walked into the hospital room. His face was stone, eyes cold, a harbinger of the storm to come. "Sarah, what's this I hear about Daniel being sick?" His voice was sharp, cutting through the sterile air of the hospital room. I swallowed, trying to find the words. "The doctors, they said he has a serious condition. But we can." "Serious condition?" Alex interrupted, his voice rising. "He is an invalid, a worthless person." "And whose fault is that, huh? You had to push for this, didn't you? At your age?" His words shocked me. "A worthless person?" "Alex, how can you say that? We wanted him, we tried for him." "Wanted?" He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "I wanted a healthy child, Sarah. Not a lifetime burden. Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost us? How much he's going to need?" I felt my heart break, piece by piece. He's your son, Alex. Our son. How can you talk like this? Alex paced, a caged animal looking for an escape. No, Sarah. I can't do this. I won't. I want a divorce. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. A divorce? I echoed, disbelief and pain mingling in my voice. Yes. And I want it clean and quick. I'll take the house, you take the kid. That's it. I was speechless, watching the man I thought I knew transform into a stranger. And what about Daniel? My voice was barely a whisper. I want nothing to do with him. You'll have to sign papers saying I gave up all rights. That's my condition. The absurdity of the situation hit me then. This was no longer the man I married, this was someone else entirely. I agreed, not because I wanted to, but because I knew Daniel and I were better off without him. Leaving the house we shared, the life we built, felt like tearing away a part of myself. But as I held Daniel close, I knew it was the start of something new, something ours. Then, the final blow came. Friends told me Alex had moved someone and almost immediately after I left, a young, pregnant woman. The pieces fell into place, the late nights, the detachment. He'd been living a double life, and now he was starting a new chapter, without a backward glance. Starting over was no walk in the park. With Daniel in my arms and my life in shambles, I found myself on the doorstep of a new beginning. The house we moved into was modest, nothing like the one I'd left behind, but it was ours, and that made it perfect. I was ready to devote my whole life to my special baby. But the day the doctor told me there had been a mistake with Daniel's diagnosis was the day my world shifted on its axis. For years, I'd braced for a life of challenges, of endless doctor visits and sleepless nights. Then, suddenly, we were handed a clean slate. I'm terribly sorry for the error. Your son is perfectly healthy, he'd said, looking both relieved and embarrassed. I could have been angry, but all I felt was an overwhelming rush of gratitude. Daniel was going to be okay. We were going to be okay. I threw myself into motherhood with a vigor I didn't know I had. Those early years were a blur of milestones, of first words, first steps, and countless firsts that filled our days with joy and our hearts with love. My grandmother's inheritance was a blessing, a safety net that allowed me to focus on Daniel, without the weight of financial worries. When the time came, selling her house felt like closing one chapter and opening another, right here in our new home, where every corner whispered of new beginnings. Returning to work wasn't just a financial decision, it was about reclaiming a piece of myself that had been on pause. The library, with its familiar smell of books and the quiet hum of day-to-day business, welcomed me back like an old friend. Back to the grind, huh? Jake, my colleague, had said with a grin on my first day back. He'd been manning the fort while I was away, and his casual chaos was a stark contrast to my need for order. Yeah, someone's gotta keep you in line, I shot back, slipping into the easy banter that had always made our workspace lively. Adjusting to the rhythm of working life, of juggling schedules and snatching moments with Daniel between shifts, was a challenge, but one I embraced wholeheartedly. Daniel, for his part, thrived in school, his curiosity boundless, his energy infectious. Mom, did you know sharks never run out of teeth? If they lose one, another grows back, he'd say, bursting through the door with facts and stories that turned our dinner times into adventures. Our life, once shadowed by fear and uncertainty, was now lit by the steady glow of routine and the unexpected joys of daily discoveries. The library, once a quiet sanctuary, became a place of lively learning, not just for me, but for Daniel too, who saw it as a treasure trove of knowledge. Mom, when I grow up, I'm gonna read every book in here, Daniel declared one afternoon as he helped me reshelve books, his small hands struggling with the weight of a particularly thick volume on dinosaurs. I laughed, ruffling his hair. That's quite the goal, champ. But if anyone can do it, it's you. The Christmas party at Daniel's school was something straight out of a holiday card, twinkling lights, children's laughter echoing off the walls, and the air filled with the scent of pine and gingerbread. I was there, mingling with other parents, sipping on too sweet punch, and keeping an eye out for Daniel, who was a blur of energy and excitement among his peers. Suddenly, Daniel appeared by my side, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Mom, you've got to meet Tommy, my best friend." His excitement was infectious, and I let him tug me through the crowd towards a boy who was looking equally eager. As we approached Tommy and his parents, my heart skipped a beat, then sank like a stone. There stood Alex, my ex-husband, with that woman, his new wife, the one he had left us for. The shock on his face mirrored mine, but any semblance of a civil reunion evaporated with his next actions. Alex's protective hand clamped down on Tommy's shoulder, pulling him back as if drawing a line in the sand. "Tommy, stay away from him," he barked, nodding towards Daniel with undisguised contempt. "I don't want you mixing with that boy. He's not right." The words were a slap, a brutal reminder of the man Alex had become. "Excuse me?" I managed, my voice sharp with disbelief and rising anger. "What did you just say about our son?" Alex, unfazed, met my gaze with that cold, arrogant look I remembered all too well. "You heard me. I'm not having my son play with someone defective." The ugliness of his words stung, but I squared my shoulders, refusing to let him see how deeply they cut. "Defective? Daniel is perfectly healthy, Alex. Not that you'd care enough to know." His smirk was infuriating, a clear indication he believed he had the upper hand. "Oh, I know you'd like to think everything's fine. But let's not pretend you didn't mess him up with your choices." Before I could retort, his wife, a bystander until now, chimed in, her voice laced with concern. "Let's not make a scene, darling. We're at a school event, remember?" Alex shrugged, his gaze still locked with mine. "She needs to hear the truth. Besides, we're doing much better now. My wife is rich, and her father owns the company I work for." He draped an arm around her, a show of possession more than affection. I looked at her, this woman who had unknowingly dismantled my life, and then back at Alex. "Doing better? By teaching your son to judge and look down on others? By spreading lies?" Alex laughed, a sound void of any warmth. "Oh, Sarah, always so dramatic. We've moved on to bigger and better things. Something you wouldn't understand." His words were meant to sting, to show off his supposedly better life. But looking at him, all I felt was pity. Money doesn't buy decency, Alex. Or kindness. As they walked away, Daniel looked up at me, his young face etched with questions and hurt. "Mom, why did he say those things? Why doesn't he want Tommy to be my friend?" I knelt down, taking Daniel's hands in mine, searching for the right words. "Sometimes, people say unkind things because they don't understand, or they're dealing with their own issues. It's not a reflection of you, my love. You are perfect just the way you are." Daniel nodded, though I could see he was still processing the harsh exchange. "Are we still going to have fun tonight?" he asked, his voice small. I smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "Of course, we are. Nothing and no one is going to ruin our night. Let's go enjoy the party, okay?" After the Christmas party debacle, I tried to push Alex and his hurtful words to the back of my mind. Life with Daniel was full enough, without dwelling on past pains. But fate, it seemed, wasn't done with us just yet. A few days after the party, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. "Hello? Hi, is this Sarah?" The voice on the other end was hesitant, unsure. "Yes, speaking. Who's this?" It's Julie. Alex's wife." Her voice wavered, like she was bracing for an onslaught. I paused, taken aback. "Julie? What can I do for you?" There was a heavy sigh. I wanted to talk to you about what happened at the Christmas party. And, about Alex." I tensed, memories of Alex's words still fresh. "All right. What about him?" Julie was silent for a moment before continuing. "I heard what he said to Daniel. And to you. I didn't know about any of this. About how he left you, about Daniel. He told me a different story." Her admission sparked a mix of emotions in me, but I kept my voice even. And what story did he tell you? That you two grew apart. That the divorce was mutual. He never mentioned. He never said anything about Daniel being sick or. Julie trailed off, but her meaning hung heavy between us. I sighed, feeling an unexpected pang of sympathy for her. Julie, Alex has a way of twisting the truth to fit his narrative. What happened at the party, what he said. That's the real Alex. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. She was quiet for a moment. I want to apologize, Sarah. For him. For what he said. It was unforgivable. And I'm going to confront him. He needs to take responsibility. We said our goodbyes, a mutual understanding hanging between us. After we hung up, I sat, phone in hand, pondering the strange turn of events. Alex's lies unraveling at the seams, and Julie, caught in the crossfire, seeking truth. 2 weeks later, after Julie's unexpected call, my phone rang, slicing through the quiet of the evening. The screen flashed his name, a reminder of a chapter one thought I had closed for good. With a sigh, I answered, bracing myself for whatever came next. Sarah, you've ruined everything. Alex's voice was sharp, tinged with desperation and anger. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a moment, taking a deep breath before responding. Ruin everything? Alex, whatever's happening is on you, not me. He was practically seething on the other end. Julie's leaving me. She found out about how I treated you, and then she got detectives on me. Found out I messed up again. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. So, let me get this straight. Julie left you because you're the same lying cheat you've always been, and somehow this is my fault? It wouldn't have happened if you hadn't talked to her, he accused, his logic as flawed as ever. Alex, I didn't tell Julie to hire detectives. And I didn't make you cheat. You did that all on your own, I said, my voice firm, devoid of any sympathy I might have once had for him. There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was laced with a desperation I hadn't heard before. I've lost everything, Sarah. Julie's dad fired me from the company. She's taking the house, the cars, everything. I have nothing. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see. And you think this is my problem because we were married once. We have Daniel. And I know I've been terrible, but I've changed, Sarah. I've realized everything now. Please, can we try again? For Daniel? The audacity of his request left me speechless for a moment. Alex, you haven't changed. You're only sorry because you got caught and lost everything. And even suggesting we try again? That ship didn't just sail, it sank. Daniel and we're doing fine. Better than fine, actually. And we don't need someone who only comes around when they've hit rock bottom. But I have nowhere else to go, he pleaded, his voice breaking. That's not my problem, Alex. You made your bed, and now you have to lie in it. Alone, I said, my tone final. He tried to argue, to bargain, but I cut him off. No, Alex. This is where it ends. You need to figure out your own life, without dragging us down with you. Goodbye. I hung up before he could say another word, the finality of the gesture making my heart race. It was done. I turned off my phone, not wanting any more disruptions for the evening. A couple of months after the whole debacle with Alex, I got a call out of the blue from Julie, his now ex-wife. She wanted to meet up, kids in tow, for a coffee chat. Curiosity piqued and a bit wary, I agreed. Daniel was always asking about Tommy, so I thought, why not? We met at a cozy little cafe downtown, a neutral ground of sorts. Julie was there with Tommy, both looking a bit apprehensive but hopeful. Daniel lit up at the sight of his half-brother, and within minutes, the kids were chattering away like old times, the awkwardness melting away under their shared excitement. Julie and I found a quiet table, coffee in hand, a world apart from the chaos of our children's laughter. So, I heard you finally went through with the divorce, I ventured, trying to tread lightly. She nodded, a mix of relief and resignation in her eyes. Yeah, I did. It was messy. But I'm out on the other side now. Feels like I can finally breathe again. I could relate, remembering my own tangled exit from Alex's life. I'm glad for you, Julie. It's not easy, walking away, but sometimes it's the only way forward. Julie sipped her coffee, then looked at me, a determination in her gaze. He showed his true colors, through and through. Made the divorce hell. But I'm glad it's over. And I've been thinking, our boys, they're half-brothers. Despite Alex being, well, Alex, I don't want Tommy growing up without knowing Daniel. Her suggestion took me by surprise, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I'd like that, I admitted. Daniel's always asking about Tommy. They're good for each other, it seems. Watching our sons play, I couldn't help but marvel at how life had turned out. A few years ago, I never would have imagined sitting here, chatting with you, watching our kids play together, I said, a smile tugging at my lips. Julie chuckled, a sound of genuine amusement. Life's funny that way, isn't it? Throws you curves, and you end up finding family in the most unexpected places. Our conversation flowed easily after that, the initial awkwardness giving way to a shared understanding. We talked about the kids, about moving forward, about building a life after Alex. It was cathartic, in a way I hadn't anticipated. Driving home, Daniel buzzing with stories about his afternoon with Tommy, I realized that this was what moving forward looked like. It wasn't just about leaving the past behind, it was about building something new, something better, from the pieces.